UFC President Dana White says Khamzat will indeed be headlining an event in his next fight. After Khamzat tweeted on Thursday that his next fight will be a 5-round main event, Dana White confirmed the news. Given the current event timeline, it's likely to be in November or December. As far as the opponent goes, it appears Khamzat is prepared to take on anyone at either middleweight or welterweight. On Saturday night, in the main event of UFC 253, UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya will attempt to defend his title against Paulo Costa. On Wednesday, Adesanya and Costa came face-to-face for a pre-fight stare-down, and as expected, it was quite tense. In addition to this Adesanya vs. Costa grudge match, UFC 253 will also feature a second championship bout as Dominick Reyes and Blachowicz collide for the vacant light heavyweight title in the co-main event. They also squared off on Wednesday, and their stare-down was even more intense. Surging UFC welterweight contender Colby Covington made some very controversial comments after his win over Tyron Woodley, calling the Black Lives Matter movement a sham that is standing for lifelong criminals. He also got into a war of words with UFC welterweight champion, but UFC President Dana White isn't sure any of it qualifies as racist.
Yesterday during the media day, several athletes, Israel included, Hakeem Dawodu, Sachar Eubanks, they all brought up the fact that they were a little bit upset with Colby Covington and some of his latest remarks. I know last week you said, hey, I'm freedom of speech, but do you feel like we might be getting to a point where we got to say, hey, listen, if something's racist or can even be perceived as racist, that's the line. You got to cut it out.
That's the 10th time you guys have asked me this. Yeah, I mean, these guys all have their own causes, things, all their own beliefs. We don't muzzle anybody here. We let everybody speak their mind. I don't know what he said that was racist. I don't know if I heard anything racist that he said. I don't know.
Would you agree that if it is racist, though, it's wrong?
Yeah, of course. Come on.
Well, just want to get
I'm not going to play these games with you guys. Come on. If it's racist, would I? Yes, of course.
Michael Chandler has signed with the UFC and has already been tapped as the backup fighter for the UFC 254 main event between Khabib and Justin Gaethje. Speaking on Instagram, he was asked who would be more dangerous for him, Tony Ferguson or Dustin Poirier, and he said Tony would be a tougher opponent because of his unpredictable style.
Which is more dangerous, Tony or Dustin? Think about dangerous, I would say Tony, because I think Tony... They're both, number one, let's start with who they both are, what they have in common. They're both really great competitors. They're both really tough. They're both really durable. They're both really, Dustin's a lot more technical and a lot more volume punching, whereas Tony is a lot more war of attrition, hit you with some weird stuff, take your best shots, instill fear and doubt in you, and then in the later rounds, he is able to put it on guys and beat guys. Whereas Dustin is more of a volume puncher, crisp boxing, less kicks, less weird stuff, more basic. You're getting a lot more basic stuff with Dustin. So when you talk about dangerous, I would say Tony, and that's no disrespect to Dustin. I think Dustin is a really great competitor. He's more brilliant with the basics, and I think it's easier to fight a guy who's brilliant with the basics than a guy who's somewhat of a wild card. Tony Ferguson is an absolute wild card. He's an absolute nut inside the cage, and as you saw in the Gaethje fight, you really have to separate him from consciousness. He still didn't even really separate him from consciousness completely, and that was the only way to possibly beat a guy like Tony Ferguson. So I like both of those fights. I would love either of those fights. I would love for either of those fights to take place anytime soon, October 24th, or anytime down the line. So we'll see what happens.